The first thing everyone noticed about Jack Turner was the oil under his fingernails. Not the kind that came from neglect, but the kind that came from never stopping, from working with your hands until they shook at night and still showing up before sunrise the next morning. At 36, Jack moved like a man older than his years, shoulders slightly forward, eyes always tired, jaw clenched as if holding something back. Helios Automotive Repair Shop opened its doors at 7, and Jack was always there at 6:30, already in oil-stained coveralls, already halfway inside an engine while the rest of the world was still waking up. That morning, he was rebuilding the transmission on a brand new SUV, the kind that cost more than he made in a year. The shop echoed with air tools and metal clatter, the smell of grease thick in the air. Jack worked in silence, using a pressure test method he'd learned long before this place, long before Helios, long before he became just another name on a payroll sheet. His hands moved with calm certainty, fingers precise, listening to the machine like it could speak to him. Then the air changed. The chatter died down. Tools slowed. Boots echoed sharply across the concrete floor. Vivian Helios had walked in. She was 31, sharp suit, clipboard in hand, her presence slicing through the workshop like a blade. She inspected everything with cold efficiency, eyes scanning for mistakes, posture rigid with control. People straightened when she passed. No one spoke unless spoken to. Vivian Helios had inherited the company 2 years earlier, and every day since then felt like a test she could not afford to fail. She stopped in front of Jack. She watched him for less than 10 seconds before her frown appeared. Her eyes narrowed at the unfamiliar technique, the old military pressure test that wasn't in any company manual. Her voice cut through the workshop, loud enough to silence even the compressors. "This isn't a military base. You're fired, effective immediately." The words slammed into the room like a dropped engine block. Every head turned. Every breath stopped. Jack froze. His fists clenched. For a moment, it looked like he might say something, might argue, might explain. Instead, he bowed his head. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper, almost lost in the echoing space. He said he still had the afternoon shift. He said he needed the money for his daughter's medicine. Vivian didn't look at him again. She turned and walked away, expression untouched, heels clicking with finality. Jack pulled off his gloves slowly. He didn't look at anyone as he walked out. No one stopped him. No one defended him. The gate closed behind him with a metallic clang, sealing the moment. Then the ground began to shake. At first, people thought it was construction. Then came the sound, deep and violent, rotor blades tearing the air apart. A Navy MH-60R Seahawk dropped into the parking lot, wind blasting dust and debris across the asphalt. An officer stepped out, megaphone in hand, voice booming over the chaos. They were there for Lieutenant Commander Raven 6. The entire shop stood frozen. No one at Helios Automotive knew who Jack Turner really was. To them, he was just another mechanic, quiet, exhausted, always covering extra shifts. They didn't know that before he was a single dad, before he was broken, worn down, he had flown through storms and gunfire. They didn't know because Jack never told them. Jack Turner wasn't always a mechanic. He had once been someone else entirely. But that life ended the day he came home alone. Now he was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Ellie. Ellie had chronic asthma, the severe kind that didn't care about good intentions or overtime hours. The kind that sent them rushing to emergency rooms in the middle of the night, that demanded expensive medication every single month. Bills stacked up, sleep disappeared, fear became constant. So Jack worked double shifts, triple shifts, oil changes at dawn, transmissions in the afternoon, engine rebuilds long after dark. He never complained. He never explained. He just kept going. The other mechanics noticed things, though. How Jack could diagnose an engine just by listening, calling out exact problems without opening the hood. How he could feel vibrations others missed. Someone once joked he was like special ops, listening for enemy aircraft. Jack had smiled and said nothing. They noticed his toolbox too. Military green, scratched, dented, serial numbers worn down, NATO stock codes barely visible. No one asked. Jack never explained. At home, things were different. Ellie would sit at the kitchen table, homework spread out, inhaler always nearby. Jack cooked simple meals, turning cheap food into adventures. He told her transmissions were puzzles, that engines were stories, that broken things could be fixed if you listened closely enough. Ellie believed her dad knew everything. To her, they weren't poor. They were a team. Every shift, every sacrifice, every ounce of exhaustion was for her. Vivian Helios sat at the top of the company, drowning in pressure no one saw. Her father's sudden death had left her with an empire and a board that doubted her. Too young, too soft, not ready. She heard the whispers, so she became ice. No mistakes, no weakness, control everything. That morning, she didn't see a father fighting to survive. She saw someone breaking her rules. And she eliminated the problem. Later that day, something gnawed at her. She pulled up security footage, rewound, watched Jack's hands. The precision, the confidence. She researched the method he used. Her face went pale. The technique was advanced, designed for combat repairs, more accurate than the standard manual. She had fired him for being better. Still, pride held her silent. Jack stood at the pharmacy hours later, prescription in hand, wallet light. He was $40 short. Ellie needed her inhaler. His shoulders sagged under the weight of it all. The pharmacist looked at him with pity, offered a sample. Jack accepted, shame burning behind his eyes. Outside, Ellie breathed easier. She told him he was the best dad ever. He held her tightly, hiding his face, feeling like he'd failed. Then the helicopter came. The sound was instinct. Jack knew it before he saw it. The officer approached him, spoke his name, his real one. The Navy disagreed with his attempt to disappear. A mission was active. A pilot was missing. Jack saw the data once and knew. He pointed out what others missed. The pilot was alive. Phones recorded everything. The video went viral within hours. Vivian watched it alone in her office. Millions of views. Comments raging. CEO fired a hero. Boycott Helios Automotive. The board called. Furious. Fix this or lose everything. That night, Jack was asked to help find a missing man. A pilot with a daughter waiting at home. Jack resisted, haunted by the ghosts of the 3 he lost years ago. But he couldn't turn away. Not when another child might lose her father. He worked through the night, mind sharp, heart heavy. He found the pilot, alive. Rescue was launched. Vivian learned the truth in fragments, then fully. Jack Turner was Raven 6. A man who saved 14 lives under fire, who carried guilt like a second spine. She went to his apartment, saw the life he lived, the child he lived for. She apologized, truly saw him for the first time. The next day, she stood before the board and owned her mistake. She reinstated Jack with a promotion. Benefits, security, not as charity, but as respect. Jack didn't see himself as a hero. He saw himself as a dad who did what he had to do. When he accepted the offer, it wasn't for the title. It was for Ellie, for stability, for breathing room. Months later, Helios Automotive changed. Training manuals updated. Leadership softened. People listened more. Jack still wore oil-stained coveralls sometimes, still helped on the floor. Ellie visited the shop, proud and smiling. Vivian learned that strength wasn't control. It was humility. And Jack learned that hiding didn't honor the past. Living fully did. Somewhere, a pilot came home to his daughter because a broken mechanic listened closely enough to hear the truth. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that real heroes often walk among us unnoticed, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this deserve to be heard, and sometimes, they remind us who we're meant to be.